All right, man. You can do this. One time, baby. One time. No tangents. No stories. Just get to the point. James chapter 5, baby. Today we are going to learn the difference between the rich and the poor in God's eyes. And we're going to see the power that prayer can have in your life. So let's dive right in. And this picks right up with where we left off in chapter 4, where James really challenged us in our materialistic view of the world. So if we go down to 5:5, that's the first verse that I want to focus on here today. And I've got my trusty notes right here. So 5:5. You have lived on earth in luxury and self-indulgence. You have fattened yourselves in the day of slaughter. So there's a couple of things going on there that I kind of wanted to unpack. So the first thing are the two terms that you see down there. You see luxury and you see self-indulgence. Now, if you actually trace back to the etymology, if you actually trace back to the Greek, we see a couple of pretty interesting things. So the first word, luxury, if you go to the Greek origin, that is typheo, which I am nearly certain I am saying that incorrectly. But that is typheo. And that word was actually also used in Nehemiah 9:25, where God grants the Israelites kind of freedom, ease of life for their obedience. So this is not necessarily a negative thing. So that use of the word luxury or typheo is not necessarily a bad thing. But if we look at the second term there, self-indulgence, this is meant to be very negative. The Greek origin here is spataleo, which I am certain I did not say correctly. So spataleo, but it's clearly negative because if we look down at 1 Timothy 5:6, but the widow who lives for pleasure is dead even when she lives. And so this is it, man. I mean, James, he uses one term that's not necessarily negative, but he uses a second term that is definitely negative. And what he's getting at here is this. The day of slaughter, that is a term or an image or a metaphor that is used throughout Scripture in other places to refer to God's judgment. And so this is going to be a time, this is kind of, the eschatological teaching that when the day of judgment comes, the rich and the poor, their roles are going to be reversed. Their roles are going to be reversed when the time comes for judgment. And so what does that mean for us? It basically means, man, if you're blessed financially, if you're blessed, just with skills and abilities and whatever, and, you are a Christian and you take your faith very seriously, then I would strongly encourage you to listen to James here and maybe start to take a more generous approach to how you could serve the people around you. So that's the big takeaway in this first part. Live generously. So now let's move on to the second takeaway, the second big idea that I wanted to pull away here from James 5. So we go down to 5:13. Is anyone among you in trouble? Let them pray. Is anyone happy? Let them sing songs of praise. And so if we listen to James here, it kind of sounds a lot like Paul, where if you look at some of Paul's writings and Paul's teachings, he is very much, along the lines of encouraging us to pray and exhorting us to pray all the time. But the thing that's really cool about James here is he distinguishes between two very contrasting situations, right? One where you're in trouble and one where you are happy. And so I think the trouble, praying when you are in trouble, I don't know about you guys, but that's what I naturally do anyway. And so I don't need a whole lot of encouragement to, say, God, please help me through this situation. But when things are going well and when things are working out, just swimmingly, sometimes I forget about God. Sometimes I forget about where this all really came from. And so that's where James uses this word happy, and as I've done all throughout this entire book and all throughout this entire Bible verse series, let's trace back to the Greek and let's get a handle on the word that he actually used here. And so he used euthymeo, which, again, much like the other two in the first section of this, that was probably completely wrong. But I'm going to go with euthymeo, which is translated happy, but it's more a state of emotions than it is a set of circumstances. And this word was also used another time, and it was actually Paul speaking. And so if we go to Acts 22 and 25, Paul finds himself on a ship that is about to be shipwrecked. He finds himself just in the midst of this raging storm. And he actually uses this same word to encourage the fellow passengers to be calm, to be happy, even while life is throwing them just an absolute tsunami. He is saying, hey, let's all calm down, let's be happy. God is not going to let any single one of us here perish. And that is like just super powerful. And so, maybe that speaks to you. My hope is that it speaks to you. But I'll tell you, just a quick anecdote in my own kind of, personal experience. When I've prayed, when I've committed to a season of prayer, I have found that I am more aware of God's grace and God's abundance and God's love all around me. And so it's not necessarily about getting my prayers answered or having God, grant me my requests or whatever. But it's just about becoming a little bit more aware of what God is doing around me every single day. And so that's it, man. The James Bible verse series is complete. If you guys like this video, man, please hit the like button. Share it with somebody that you think it might help. And be sure and subscribe to the channel. We've got new videos coming out all the time. And I will see you guys on the flip side. Yeah, I think that went pretty well. There were a couple of times where I almost went off on a tangent, but I resisted the urge and I stayed strong.